Hello and welcome again to another episode of Career Magic with Nitin Kulkarni, and I'm continuing the series on starting your career, a series that is really targeted for students who are just finishing their education or have finished their education and are preparing to get into the workforce, are applying for their first job and are going to interview for their first job. Very exciting time, a huge change, and therefore it also requires a change in mindset from your college time. So far, I have spoken about getting into the mindset to be hired. What do companies look for? What do recruiters look for? I have talked about writing a killer resume, very simple things, but really putting yourself in the shoes of the recruiter, of the recruiting company, and thinking about it from that perspective. And then I've also talked about researching the company where you are going to appear for an interview. All of these things have to happen before the interview. And the next two episodes are going to be about some standard questions that get asked a lot. And again, what I'm going to emphasize here is the pre-interview preparation. So I'm going to talk about in these two sections. In the first section, I'm going to talk about some common questions that recruiters like to ask that tell them about you, what kind of person you are, what kind of qualities you have, what kind of qualities you bring to the table, because that is really important, as I have discussed in the previous videos. And in the second one, I'm going to talk about questions related to what you have done in the last 4 years from the perspective of your course, your project, major project during your education, etc. So that is going to be the second episode. So in this first episode, I am going to talk about the questions that you see on your screen right now. So these questions are: what are you really good at? What is your biggest weakness, or what are your two biggest weaknesses? So what are you really good at is a question that can be phrased in many ways. They may ask you, tell me about your two top strengths. What are you really good at? When are you at your best, etc. So these are all very similar questions that go to understand you as a person and what kind of professional you could be, what strengths you bring to the table, and what is your biggest weakness. Again, can be phrased in many different ways, but what they are trying to understand is, are you self-aware? Are you in a position to acknowledge what you are not good at and therefore work on it and improve yourself, or are you in this delusional thinking that you don't have any weaknesses? And I'll give you some tips on how to answer these questions and how not to answer these questions. Tell me about a time you made a mistake. They want to understand, because everyone makes mistakes, right? None of us is perfect. So they want to understand if you acknowledge that, and are you honest enough to admit that, and why should we hire you is a very, very important question that gets asked a lot, not just in interviews where they are hiring freshers, fresh graduate, but even in interviews that you will encounter later. So this style of thinking that I'm going to talk to you about will really help you, not just today but in future interviews as well. Okay, so let's get started. But before I get started with these 4 questions, just a quick reminder. I keep reminding you about these things because they are really important. This is what the recruiters, the recruiting company is looking for: people who have clarity and focus, who know what they want to do, who know where they are going, and have the ability to focus on that and make it happen. Action orientation: get up and take action instead of sit around and wait for things to happen or blame the circumstances, etc. Take action. Ability to learn quickly in this fast changing world, and honesty, very, very important. So remember these 4 things when I get into these questions and as I get into answering these one at a time. So let's dive right into it. So the first question: what are you really good at? It's a good idea before the interview. So I'm going to really emphasize the preparation part. Spend some time before you get into any interviews to ponder these questions. Write these questions down. So you have these questions on your screen right now. Take a screenshot, write these questions down, and I will talk about these one at a time. Okay. So the first question: what are you really good at? What are your biggest strengths? Sit down and think about it. What are you good at? Are you good at taking action? Are you a person who is very good at problem solving and analysis? So sit down and make a list of at least 3 or 4 things that you think you are really good at. Okay. Now it does not end there. The main thing is you take these one by one, these 3 or 4 items that you have made a list of, and try to find evidence of that in your past life. The most recent examples are the best. So for example, if I say that I am really good at problem solving and analytical skills, then think of evidence for that. So you might and write down those 1 or 2 instances where you demonstrated it, preferably in the very recent past. So you may say that, yeah, you know what, when we were doing our final BTech project, we ran into this difficulty where we were not able to solve this problem because the project required this and we didn't have it, and we had to find an innovative way to do it. So I came up with these 2 options, these out of the box options that could help us solve the problem. We tried one, didn't work. We tried the other, it worked. So that could be one. Another one could be, not just related to your studies. It could be from outside work also. So you could talk about something you did where you live, where there was a big problem that needed to be solved and you came up with an idea and solved it. So it could be anything, but come up with real examples, honest, real examples that where you demonstrated it. It's absolutely critical. The recruiter is not going to take your word for it. I remember even 1984 when I went for an interview at Eicher. I eventually ended up working for Maruti Suzuki, but I was also interviewed at Eicher and I got hired there. One of the answers I gave to that recruiter was, recruiting manager, was that I'm very good at coming up with new ideas. And he said, tell me, in the last 1 year, what new idea have you come up with and how did it work out? So I had to give him an example. I remember there was something, I had a scooter and I did something with it and I talked to him about it and he was quite happy with it. So actually, and at that time I had gone unprepared, so I had to really think about it and give him the answer. But if you are prepared, you can give this answer. So evidence is crucial and the more recent, the better. Okay. Now, also remember that if you can tie some of the strengths that you are talking about to what the recruiters look for, don't be a phony. Don't make up everything based on the list I gave you and list them as strengths and find phony examples. Don't do that. Be genuine. But wherever you have an opportunity to relate one of your strengths to what is required at the job, you have researched the company, you know what is required over there. You don't have to say, yeah, so I'll be able to do this over there. You talk about your strengths and where it would be helpful, and they will make their own judgment. Okay, so that's question number 1. Question number 2, very important question that gets asked a lot in interviews. I like to ask it too when I hire people. What is your biggest weakness? Or when are you not at your best? Yeah. Or what if I had to talk to your friends or someone, what would they tell me is your area of improvement? It can be asked in many different ways, but the question is the same. Again, think about this. The worst answers that I get, and I immediately reject those candidates because I don't think they are being honest, is when people come up with weaknesses like, yeah, you know what, my weakness is that I cannot stand incompetence, or I cannot stand politics, or I cannot stand backbiting, or that is not really a weakness. What you are telling them is a weakness, a strength disguised as a weakness. People can see through that kind of stuff, and it does not make you look very good if you are not being genuine about your mistakes. So for example, if someone had to ask me today what is my weakness, I'll probably tell them I'm not very good at making sales pitches. I think I'm getting better, but I often struggle to do that. I also often struggle in networking with people and when I'm in a large gathering, and I have realized that and I'm working on it. So what they want to see here is genuine weaknesses that you have realized, And they also will ask you, okay, so where do you think that will hold you back and what can you do to improve? So they would like to see some evidence that you either have already started working on it or you have some clarity in your head on how you can solve that problem and how that might hold you back, in what situations that sort of weakness might get in the way of you doing your best. So that self-awareness and a little more detail around what you can do to improve or what you have already done to improve would be very, very valuable in answer to that question. Don't give phony answers. Really, those will make you look really bad. Okay. Now, the third question that I talked about was tell me about a time when you made a mistake. Again, before and go for any interviews, think about this question. People will ask this question. Understand that everyone makes a mistakes. Even the interviewer who is asking you questions has made mistakes, many. In fact, if you try doing stuff, if you are action oriented, you make mistakes. So you can tell them that, yeah, you know what, there was this time when I had to do this and I slipped on it, or I procrastinated, and because of that, this is what happened. I had to do it last minute. The result wasn't very good and I let my project partner down. Whatever it is, tell them genuinely what happened, how you felt about it. Did you feel genuinely bad about it? And what you did about it after that, what lessons you learned, and therefore how you are going to conduct yourself after that. So people will, if you are very honest about this, people appreciate it. They want to really hear about a mistake you made. Okay. So that is question number 3. The question number 4 again is a question that brings a lot of this thing together, which is, why should we hire you? What do you bring to the table that should be exciting for us? Again, it can be asked in many different ways. What they are looking for is 3 things. One, they are looking for, do you really understand what is needed in the job? Yeah, that is the one thing. Second, do you really understand what you bring to the table? And number 3, are you smart enough to make the connection between the two and make a case as to why you would make a very good employee? So those are the 3 things you have to talk about. Typically, when you are answering this question, what you should do is, you should talk a little bit about, say that, yeah, you know what, this is going to be my first job. So I really don't understand what is required in a job very well. But I have talked to many people and I know that, I have to be action oriented there. I have to take action. I have to be positive. I have to be a problem solver and all that. So just lay out some things that you believe are important when you go out and do the job. And then talk about your strengths and how they fit into this scheme of things. And then tell them about how you will make a very good employee, how you will fit into that job very well. Again, go back to those 4 things that employers are looking for. Remember, clarity and focus, action orientation, honesty, and those things that I spoke to you about. I hope you have written those down. Put these things together and craft an answer that addresses what you think they are looking for, what the job might entail, your strengths, and how they come together to make you a very good employee. Don't go on and on. Any of these questions, don't go on and on about these things forever. Make your answers crisp and to the point, and in every single case give evidence. Even if they have not asked for it, you're talking about, so for example, if you talk about one of your strengths as being a quick learner or learning new things is something that you find exciting, the immediate next question is going to be, tell me something new you have, since you are so big on learning new things, tell me 2 new things you have learned in the last 6 months. So be prepared to answer that question, right? Give evidence. So think about all of these things and be prepared with the answers. If you think about these in advance, make some notes, rehearse how you're going to answer them crisply and in a very clear manner. When these questions come to you in the interview, you're going to be a winner. Okay. So I hope that was helpful. In the next episode, I'm going to talk about some things that recruiters like to ask, even I like to ask, where they explore, your course, some of the technical stuff, your project, etc., etc. Okay. So all the very best, and I will see you in the next episode of Career Magic, starting your career.